Coronavirus is changing the world we live in. The Pi News is conducting a series of interviews with professionals in the international education industry to see how their organisations are being affected. In this episode, the Pi spoke with international students from around the world to learn about the challenges they are facing because of the pandemic. Dominic Frey is from Poland and is studying at Queen Mary University of London. Natalia Murcia is from Colombia and is a student ambassador for Study Perth in Australia. Peggy Pavletic from Croatia is a PhD student at the University of Camerino in Italy. Abhijit Harikumar is from Kerala in India and is studying at University of Western Australia. Vish Gain is an Indian student at Dublin City University in Ireland. Hua Nguyen is from Vietnam and is studying at the University of Leeds in the UK. And Dennis Mitrov is from Switzerland and is studying at International House in Darwin, Australia. They told us about their experiences of coronavirus.
Mainly, I believe it's the face-to-face attending classes that it has been a bit disappointing having to attending lectures just online when they have all made a big investment in their courses.
So I study masters in journalism, and a lot of our classes were practical-based classes, which would mean that we used to use equipment, we used to go out and speak to people and interview people for a lot of our assignments. And it's just so much harder to do when you're at home, when you don't have access to the university's equipments, and when you don't have easy access to the people you used to.
I got sponsored for a study tour to the Switzerland from the business school. It was a long, a very challenging process, but then it got canceled at last minute because of the coronavirus. And also every activity that I've been involved in, just like volunteer activities, part-time job, and some of the events of my course that I am currently leading were all canceled or postponed. So leave me like nothing else to do.
So everything was going fine till the coronavirus came. Like many others, I also worked in the hospitality. Many international students in the Northern Territory work in the hospitality. And so I lost my job. I lost my income. Everything was going fine before. I could pay the rent, I could pay the groceries and the study fees, but a little bit tricky because I know we have our savings and we need to have our savings, but still the savings are becoming lower and lower, and there's not yet any light on the end of the tunnel. So I don't know how long I will be able to live from the savings.
So in my case, I was living in university accommodation, and it was a really nice thing that the university made us, if you wish to go back home and study online, then you can terminate your contract. Yet you have to collect all your things and empty your room. And actually it wasn't possible in most of the cases because people simply left UK immediately, as I did. Legally, I was obliged to pay money for my room, which included bills and everything. Yet I didn't do that. I emailed my university that I left UK for Poland, and can you give me like any kind of support in terms of collecting things and in terms of I don't know, like maybe some kind of change in the amount of money I have to pay, because like I'm not using any kind of electricity, internet or anything like this. And they responded simply like, until you collect your things, you have to pay the whole amount. I pay £750 per month at my accommodation. Like living in London is 5 times more expensive than in Poland. It's a lot of money.
I have heard of people that can't afford the groceries anymore. But I need to say the international students community here, especially in Darwin, is really, really strong. So there are many communities like the Filipino community, Nepali community, Kaina Sheikh, for example. And all these communities are trying to create events. So they are trying to create events for free meals. And at the moment, the people can get help almost every day. Still, with the rents, I have heard that some people couldn't afford the rents anymore. So they're living now somehow in the hostel, and they are working in the hostels to afford the bed and breakfast somehow there.
But the problem is, yes, definitely the language barrier, because everything is written only in the first language of the country, and not many documents are actually online, which could help you in determining what are your steps or how someone can help you.
Communication should be tailored to their cultural perspective thing. So they understand the English itself, but they don't understand the why it is communicated that way. For example, like the UK government keep telling us like to keep washing hands, to keep social distancing while you are going out, and to try to stay at home. We understand that perfectly because it's like very simple language. But then what we don't understand is like why the government doesn't encourage people to wear a mask, and what is the stand of the UK government on people wearing a mask. Like if they don't encourage it, are they against it? Or if they don't encourage it, will they protect people who actually do that?
Even having classes online, for instance, has been a little challenging because different professors have different ways of dealing with the change, which would mean that some professors prefer having classes on Zoom calls, but some professors would rather just send us the resources. And keeping track of which professor is using what method to teach us, and the increase in coursework as well, because a lot of the professors aren't having classes at the moment. They're switching to different ways of teaching, which includes more assignments. So for the 2 hours of lecture that we don't have any longer, we now have 2 hours of essay writing or quizzes or reflections to write on the basis of the slides that they've sent us. And I think that that just adds to the already heavy workload that we have as master's students.
It's a bit difficult studying online because normally what I do is if they take a class or something, I get to ask questions to like, the teachers there itself. But now it's like I have to send an email, waiting to like get a reply from him, and then like set up a meeting through Zoom, and then yeah, it takes time, and then sometimes like I've got teachers from France and Italy and then Germany and stuff, so you can't really understand what they're saying or they're conversing through the online method.
I have seen a lot of discrimination on online platforms like Facebook, for example. I have an Italian friend, and she wanted to help a family that was looking for help with their children, and she told them, yeah, she will be able. She has experience with those things, and afterwards there were like 60 comments that she should go back home to her country, and her country's unresponsible. It's not responsible. Her country's bad, and people from Italy would be lazy, and it's their fault that the coronavirus is spreading everywhere.
The thing that I experience in terms of discrimination is by wearing a mask, because we know about all kind of stuff like this in January, and we are still going to school in February and in the early of March. So if you notice in the classroom, the majority of if my classmates are coming from China and from other parts of Southeast and East Asia. So we want to wear a mask, and some of my friends receiving like, they don't receive any offensive statement, but they do receive a lot of like challenging look from European citizens or from home students.
I do have friends who do struggle with mental health issues. And I know for a fact that now being on lockdown and having so much uncertainty with respect to both our course and what comes after the course is taking a toll on a lot of us, whether or not we had mental health issues before coronavirus. So for people who would have had mental health issues, of course, it's been aggravated. Staying at home all the time, sometimes being with your family doesn't quite help. I might want to go back home and see my family, but I also know that for extended periods of time, being with family may not be the best option for a lot of students.
I think at this point, it's becoming really apparent that this is something that we should do. We should really take care of the mental health of the students and make sure that all of these centers, which are supposed to give support to the students at this moment, actually give the support to them. And they should stay open, I think, 24/7, or even have phone lines open just to be able to be there, not only for the students, but to everyone who needs it in this time in the higher educational system.
I think we have all been feeling very disappointed because we have been, in a way, left behind or forgotten, or like the Prime Minister said, that it's better to go back home, but we cannot go back home because all borders are closed and countries have all their quarantine restrictions already in place. So I believe the solution is not sending the problem to someone else to deal with, but just trying to include everyone, and especially when international students are also taxpayers, and the international education industry as well is the third industry injecting a lot of money to Australia's economy.
From the latest message that the Prime Minister said, like, we can't expect much help from the government side. But yeah, but the study clusters are a bit, like, I think, government aided, so they are helping from the way they can.
I don't think that the universities did as much as they could, especially regarding protecting their students and their rights to education. I really think that the individual approach, which is the government gives out a recommendation and the university is the one who decides what they're going to do, I think it's completely wrong. I think on the national level, there should be, guidelines on how to assure a certain set of rules which all of the higher education institutions should abide or should follow, because this is how I think that all of the students will get equal opportunities.
We as international students are basically away from our homes, and we like sacrifice each and every stuff, and then we came here to like study and then get something done and get into our dream jobs or dream careers. So it would be a bit helpful if we get the same treatment as the ones citizens. So if that treatment is there, and if we feel welcomed, that would be much helpful even through this entire crisis. As if we get to know that we have the support as same as everyone, then there's nothing to worry about.